Hi, Victoria. Welcome, welcome. How's your day going so far? Let's see, still getting a few tech things sorted out. Hi, Raven. Welcome, welcome. Hope you're having a decent evening. There we go. It's 18-ish, severely touched start. It's about the same as normal. Oh, I feel that. I feel that. Sometimes plushies can help, but it's just not quite the same. Let's see. Raven, fine, just a little what? Let me run Twitch ads real quick. Did I have... No, I forgot a thing. Yes, and... where is... No. Oh, sick. Okay. I see the emote now. It was just a little low. It was just a little slow in loading. What sort of symptoms are you having tonight, Raven? Hi, Ro? Visiting family, but wanted to say hi? Welcome, welcome. Hopefully I can give you a little bit of a reprieve from them. Hopefully it's not going too badly. I know for some people, these family holidays can be a little rough. Let's see. There it is. Okay. There we go. Got everything I need to do tech side done. Flu thing, so the usual throat, nose, possibly chest issues. Are you drinking lemon tea with honey and a lot of water? Good, 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 good. That's what I have too. Unfortunately, my tea's mostly cold. Though I wonder... Oh, that smells nice. So I have a mug of tea that I've been sipping over the last few hours that I've been prepping. And then I have a thermos with about a little over one mug's worth of tea of the same concoction. So now I have warm tea. Actually, warm tea for stream. This is oh, it feels so nice. I'm gonna get the flu in hot weather. Feels horrible. Oh, yeah, that. Right. At least when it's cold, you can bundle up in blankets like Holly's doing, evidently. Hi, Holly. Welcome, welcome. Grab some blankets, a nice warm drink, and hopefully have a nice cozy evening with me. I know things aren't going particularly well, but hopefully something to forget that for at least an hour or two. Oh, I really wish that Firefox had better tab management, because I have, gods, how many of these tabs are, oh dear, I think I have about 30, so I have about 10 or 12 fanfic tabs, and then I have 15 or 20 Elder Scrolls book tabs, and then I have all of the the tabs that go into my my art stuff, I guess, whether it's like social media or copy page or that sort of stuff. So oh, but I do have some interesting stories for tonight. Though I do need to find where... That's not it. That's not it either. There we go. Raven, you were writing yesterday your universe creation process. Felt like I was writing a Bible. I mean, that's effectively what the Christian Bible is, right? And a couple other, I mean, I suppose most religions tend to have some sort of creation myth. So munch. Oh dear, munch. Okay, let me. Get some fruit gummies here. Munch, sip, stretch. Wait, did I not? Oh no. Oh dear. Did I not put a timer on that? I made the same mistake with the stretch as I did the sip. Oh no. I know I'd find one without a cooldown. It was either going to be you or Bokudoku that found it. Become elongated. Honestly, I mean, I could use a stretch here. Let me stretch while I'm doing this. Let's see, which one were we? Stretch, edit. Do we do this again? Cooldowns and limits. Time between redemptions. You can put the time between redemptions at up to 7 days? Holy cow, okay. Let's just put 15 minutes. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Holly. And I will actually properly stretch. Oh. I think does the rest of the eyes one have a cooldown as well? Oh gods, no, it doesn't have a cooldown. I'm going to put this at 20 minutes because that is what is recommended to me by my speech therapist of all people. So for long COVID, like I have the my PCP, my long COVID clinic specialist, and then the long COVID clinic sent me to physical and speech therapy, right? And, you know, I've explained how, like, with speech therapy, the things like concussions evidently have similar symptoms and ways of dealing with it that some of the symptoms of long COVID do. But one of the things that she specifically mentioned is, hey, so if you can, I'd like you to look every 20 minutes, look 20 meters away for 20 seconds. And not exact numbers, but it is something that I'd like to get in the habit of doing. And my room isn't quite 20 meters long, but 10 meters. Well, we'll have to do it every question mark minutes. We look 10 meters away instead of the, like, 40 centimeters to the screen. And thank you for the beta testing. Do I have proper cooldowns on everything? I think I have everything else on proper cooldowns. Yeah. Even the Octopath Traveler character secondary job chooser has a proper cooldown. Yeah, Auto only has 5 minutes. Because, you know, that's a fairly small thing. Being bombarded by Nova in Word. Get squished. Holly, I need to start taking breaks on Twitch again. The reason I don't manage more than 5 hours anymore is that I'm not taking ad breaks as actual breaks. I want to do 8+ a day again. That's a lot, though. Do work up to it. Though, definitely, taking breaks is good. I mean, even with, like, eye breaks, right? Just, like, every 30 minutes. Just, you know, 10 seconds or something. The thing I was thinking of doing is if I could just, like, get everybody else in stream in on it, looking away for 10-20 seconds. You know me, I either operate on 0 power or 400% power. That's true, Holly. Again, I do worry, but I also can't stop you. I can at least come along and do a little bit of harm reduction. Make sure you're taking care of yourself to some degree. But, so I did a stretch. A sip. Let's do a munch. Let's see, I have a Lusty Argonian Maid related story. I have a few Daedra related stories. I was thinking of trying to get Oblivion related stories. So we're not just the realm of Oblivion, but also the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, like an actual game. But I think I have just a few at the moment. Let's see, okay. That's stuff I don't need to take a look at. We can throw this there. Really wish there was a way to turn off the viewer counter for parts of my interface that have it. 'Cause I'm not fond of looking at it. Whether I'm doing well or not, you know. That's whether we have a ton of people in here or whether we have, you know, 3 people just in a cozy little pile in the corner. Let's see now. I'm definitely in the cozy pile. Yeah. Mild food poisoning and major migraine. Either one is bad enough. Both at the same time is, yeah, definitely pile in the corner status. Oh yeah, Holly, at some point, can I ask you about the various filters that you have on your mic? Because I have 1 or 2 that I use, but some of the other ones that I want to use don't work with OBS, and I seem to remember you having a good filter, or a good filter sequence. Yeah. Actually, I don't even have a single one that I can make work on my voice. Yeah. Yeah, noise reduction, EQ and yeah, gating, also compressor as well, possibly, so that my voice caps out at a reasonable volume. So yeah, I definitely have my music. I'm at least able to properly compress and gate, or not gate, compress and limit. I don't use a compressor because my mic has it built in, but I can send the rest right now. Oh, thank you, thank you. Oh, weird individual. Welcome to Succubard's library. Thank you for the follow. Let's see. Oh, I really have too many tabs. Gods. Let's see. So we have some Daedra lore. There's On the Nature of Oblivion. So there's we have, up on the YouTube channel, right? We have On Oblivion, The Doors of Oblivion. And then we have one more Oblivion related one. Oh no, how many tabs? Care to take a guess? This is just in my main browser window. I have a secondary browser window that I use for my my second monitor, and then I have a whole separate browser which has better tab organization, but is Vivaldi, and Firefox has some better stuff that I like. My mom often has like 30 plus tabs open. Yeah. I think Vivaldi has probably at least 100 tabs. I at least do use a number of them quite frequently, but on Google Chrome of all things, Chrome, despite my misgivings with Chrome itself, it does definitely have a decent tab organization. Actually, Opera GX was actually really nice until I found out that the company's rather shady and has crypto scammy stuff, and just that's finding a browser that's a nice balance between privacy and functionality, and then like a company that isn't absolutely rancid. That's a whole trip and a half. Weird individual. I have 2 tabs open at a time. 2. Just 2? How? Teach me your secrets. Raven, I only have 8 gigs of RAM. Can't open that many tabs. That's true. OCD is how? Fair. Fair. That's compulsions are compulsions. Sometimes they work out to your advantage, evidently. Oh. So there's the book On Oblivion, which was written by Morian Zenis, the mage, right? And then there was the Doors of Oblivion, which was written by his apprentice, right? Where he goes to Apocrypha and gets stuck. Turns out he survives. And later there is an interview with Morian Zenis written by a different writer that... so this is after he's gone to Apocrypha, right, is where he gets stuck. And then he's actually come out. Coherent. I won't say anything about sanity, but coherent. And so he actually has a whole interview, so we can take a look at that. Oz, welcome, welcome. It's good to see you. How's your evening going so far? Frenzy plagues me no longer? That's good to hear. Did you manage to defeat the frenzy boss? Let's see. There's Morian Zenis. Ah. So I found before I was working off of a story library for the Elder Scrolls, right? And I found an even larger stories library that not only has quite an expanded list, but also has them nice and categorized. So there's books about artifacts, there's biographies, there's some crafting motifs, faction books, fiction. So fiction would be in-world fiction. Kind of like the... Oh, which book is it that we've read that's actually fiction even within the world of Elder Scrolls? Vernicus and Borler. That's one of the ones we've read. Although that, I didn't read it very well. That was a day where I had a migraine and I was trying to read. Oh, sometimes. He was exorcised of sins in the day of Jesus. Was he really sinful, though? Well, honestly, what is sin in the, not Middle Earth? What's the name of, the world of Elden Ring? It's something like the middle something or another, right? That's definitely a world and lore. The lands between. There we go. There we go. That's the one. That's the one. I know the... Frenzy? May chaos take the world. I'm not so much a chaos cultist as I am a a moon worshipper of sorts, but definitely see how people can land on frenzy. Victoria, shout out to Radon's horse being named Leonard and also being the reason that Radon learned gravity magic. Right? He liked his steed so much that he's just like, okay, I'm too big for this. This poor, poor Leonard. I will literally learn gravity magic so that I don't absolutely crush my poor horse. And also, he may or may not use gravity magic to do some other rather world-altering things. But he learned it for his steed. Yeah, yeah. Learned it for Leonard. Actually, let me swap out my hairband real quick. I just realized this one. Kitty ears? Kitty ears, kitty ears. Kitty ears, kitty ears. Thank you for the redeem row. But not row. 4 row. There we go. I was trying to thank you while also reading your message at the same time. And the brain went places. Oh, rest of the eyes. Okay, so I'm going to look. Ideally, it's 20 meters away every 20 minutes for 20 seconds. I don't have 20 meters to work with. So, I'm going to look 10 meters away to the other side of my room for about 20 seconds, if you'd like to join me. This is medically sanctioned. Yeah, let's see. Multi-track streamer brain? Yeah, Holly, it really is. It's, streamer brain's really only... It's not supposed to come into effect until a little later in the stream, when I'm slightly more fatigued. But... I can start off with streamer brain. I also actually got a little icon for the channel points, finally. Little ribboned up hearts. There we go. And I'll munch just a little bit more to fulfill that munch that you initially gave me, Holly. Victoria, I don't really enjoy a Lord of Frenzy ending because it kills Torrent. That's fair. Counterpoint. Torrent has killed me more than Melania. Was it Torrent killing you? Or was it a poor judge of distance? Because I know for me it's mostly the latter. The pout. The pout. The pout. Did I hit the nail on the head, Holly? To be fair, in my case, I'm the same. Torrent has killed me more than Melania has, because Melania's never killed me. Oh no, it's the Pout Squad. Not the whole Pout Squad. That is still a absolutely genius emote. There are, like, people have cute emotes, right? But sometimes there's just that one or two that are just perfect. And that one, especially with her pout emote, is just, yeah. We use it so much, too, within our circles. Like, anytime, or, like, you or Ro or Word or Nova or, like, anybody that, are fairly close with streams, there's going to be pout emotes. There are always pout emotes. my poor webcam is not fast enough to properly animate the pop-pops from my face. I'm sorry. It only does 30 FPS and it does it badly. Raven, funny fact, I'm not a big fan of tea, but gotta admit cold lemon tea with honey works wonders right now. Yeah, it really does. And you would think lemon with the acidity would, and the sourness wouldn't be that good for something like a sore throat, but it seems to work really well. In fact, my mother used to actually take lemons, slice them up, cook them, like boil them, while sort of squishing them a little bit, and then strain that out and mix honey into it. And that was what I got, which is this, it really is an ambrosia. It's wonderful. Of course, the times that I got to enjoy it, I wasn't feeling particularly well, so and unfortunately, it's hard to get the fresh lemons or the time to actually properly make it nowadays. So I have to settle for fresh tea, but not fresh lemon juice. And then plenty of honey. Plenty of honey. I have at times been accused of liking a little bit of tea with my honey. And it is a warranted accusation, a very accurate accusation. Ashke, hello, welcome. It's been a little while. Holly, I just realized I lost the Pout Squad animation project files. You animated Pout Squad because the emote animator we were looking at ran out of credits, and I was annoyed and just did it myself in Premiere. Huh. Okay. Huh. But also, holy cow. Like, you've made so many things for, both for your stream and for other people's, right? Like, a lot of your models stuff, your current models stuff, like the sword and the choker and the tail and also the Una reverse animation too, right? Or all you're doing, right? I'm Scrappy. Ow. It's definitely something that I wish I had the patience to do, but gods, between actually learning this sort of thing, doing it, right? The streaming and the video making, and then the audio editing and the video editing. I'm trying. I'm learning some things with video editing. Some of the gradient on the titles is something that took a little while to get right for the YouTube videos, to where they use the font that I like. That, it's a very swirly, cursive font, but it has a gradient and a gradient, a shadow, and a lining or a border that allows it to still stand out and doesn't absolutely clash against the background colors. Because that was really hard, because so the room, right, this reading room is blue, purple, and brown and orange, right? And so getting something that would fit the room and me, right, where the title is sitting right beside me, where I'm mostly gray, black, blue, and pink, and a pretty particular blue too. It's not quite the deep, the royal blue or like the more purpley blue that's out the window back here. it's a much brighter, more almost greener blue in a lot of cases, right? Especially on the roses. So it's, you know, trying to find not just one color, right, but a gradient of colors that wouldn't clash with either of those was a whole journey. And I had the help of somebody that, actually studied art and colors, and used some tools and some like random guesses, and I think I made like 6 or 7 different potential gradients that one night to finally get to something that really worked. Hi, Pan. Welcome. By the way, how have you been, Hashke? He said it's been a while. I don't know if you've been here. Wait, have you been here since I started doing reading streams instead of violin streams? Raven, animation is cool? Yeah, animation is definitely cool, but also a super time-intensive process a lot of the time. And getting it right takes a lot of skill. Oh yeah, I've edited something like 1,200 videos and I just cannot be bothered anymore. I mean, you have like a template, right? That you have set up in DaVinci Resolve? Because I know for me, I don't know how to set up a template yet. I haven't looked it up and learned. But the way I, quote unquote, set up a template or use a template is I just load my previous project and then save it as the new project, and then start deleting like the footage and the music and just keeping all of the other elements in there. And so, like, the text doesn't have to change too much. I'm not subtitling it, right? As much as I would like to, it's just, it would probably, multiply the energy required by 5 to 10 times. But, all of the title placements, the color gradients, the shadows, the, amount of time that they stay on, the fade in and fade out, like that is all just really consistent video to video. And that way I can just plug in the new footage, and like getting the footage is the hard part, right? When I'm recording new videos, is each of my videos tend to be 10-ish minutes of just straight footage, no breaks whatsoever, all recorded in one time, because it's if it was just audio, I could record until I make a mistake, go back, go from there, just keep adding takes until it's all done. But I don't know the animation side, the visual editing, video editing side of things, and so I don't want to fade in, fade out between all of my takes. Is that would just sort of get really awkward and not very immersive, and yeah, so, and the getting the timing right would also be a pain in the butt too, right? Like the editing becomes a little bit of a pain in the butt, but would you like attention? There you go. It's not scary on the armrest. Don't worry. Kitty, yeah. Preset effects are the best. Me, I have a template set up in Premiere and then wipe it clean back to the template when I'm done. Just render out the video and then just wipe it. Same with your PSD for thumbnails. That thing is 620 megabytes. Oh, I really need to learn visual editing. But so far, all of my thumbnails are just stills, single frame stills from DaVinci Resolve. It's, yeah. but I used the open source visual editing program that is a slur, like just a literal slur. And I just bounced off of it so hard, right? Even getting things like 1, 2, 3 pixel borders for letters so that they can stand out against backgrounds. That is super easy in DaVinci Resolve, right? It is, it's just part of the text plus objects that they have. And, I can change the color of it, the size of it. I could even have not just the text body itself, the letters, be a gradient. I could also have the outline be a gradient if I really wanted to. Like there are so many nice features there. But it just, for still image editing, it doesn't have the power of visual editing programs, but for my current use, it's just so much simpler than the usual open source one that's recommended to me. Holly? I never paid for Photoshop Premiere, though I've switched to Photopea now. Photopea, I'm going to write that down. Today is the 20th. Photopea. I could never wrap my head around NewImp. Yeah, I couldn't either. I've tried it multiple times over the years, and every time it's just like, at least with the DaVinci Resolve, I didn't totally bounce off of it. It's it's still difficult. Like that initial bump to get, you need a base set of skills to get media into the program, get them into their own, get them onto the timeline, edit them, setting up the what do you call it? Video 1, video 2, video 3, audio 1, audio 2, and then the object stuff. Like I still don't know how to properly. I don't know how to crossfade from video to video in a single line. I have to have like a video 1 and video 2, where video 1 fades out and video 2 fades in. But even with that sort of difficulty, it's NewImp is just a whole different level of just I don't even know what's going on. Photopea's browser-based perfect clone of Photoshop. Oh. Like, what kind of an image editing suite does not have a line tool? Really? NewImp doesn't have a line tool? Huh. Pan, that's fair. Thumbnails can be a heck. Yeah, definitely can't be a heck. But also it's something that I really would like to get some basic skills in, because thumbnails are important, right? It's the cover of a book or a manga, or it's the first chords of a song, right? It's this first impression that people get that literally they decide whether they want to give your piece of art a try, right? And so especially now, it's super, super, super important. But also just absolutely at the very end of my priorities in terms of what I'm willing to, or what I'm currently able to put time and patience into. Because part of it is like I'm having to relearn an art, right? Like for, the last, except for about 4 or 5 years right after high school, I've been playing violin for basically most of 3 decades. And now I'm just suddenly you know, after not having really sung since my, you know, since puberty, since puberty started, I'm suddenly using my voice as an art. And, you know, so that's its own learning process. And then I have the audio editing and the video editing, and it's just like, so that's. Oh, Jay, welcome in, welcome in. How did I miss Jay? Right, okay, so this is ignoring. Oh, that's why. I wonder if I can. Let's see, filtering. Don't hide commands. And. Yeah, that'll do. There we go. And thank you for the lurk, Jay. Hope you have a good lurk. So with Restream, I have a single interface where all of my chat comes in, right? So that I don't have to have both YouTube chat and Twitch chat open or anything like that, and I can see everything in its native habitat. But one of the filtering things that I had on there was that it doesn't display any of the exclamation mark commands on my side. But that also meant that if somebody came in and, like Jay, you know, exclamation mark lurk, then it wouldn't show on my side, which is terrible. Alright, let's see. Let's take another sip, and then let us start in on the stories. By the way, is the music volume all right? Still able to solidly hear my voice without the music, like, getting an uncomfortably large percentage of it, but still able to make it out just a little bit? Like the music not being a totally amorphous blob of noise in the background? Sounds good? Okay. Oh. That emote got stuck on my head. Maybe it's the kitty ears. Maybe it's the kitty ears. So let's see. Oh, that's what I forgot to do. Happy Easter. Hi, Starwind. Welcome, welcome. Happy Easter. Oh, hopefully you've had a decent time of it. Usually I'm up in Seattle for SakuraCon this time of year, really consistently. But unfortunately this year, my physical therapist recently basically said, okay, we're going to try to do exercises that slowly help you regain ground with stamina and, you know, physical capabilities. Turns out I can't do much more than 2 minutes of walking pace before it goes over what would be strengthening and goes to what would be damaging. So yeah, no conventions for me for a while. Now that all the excitement of Easter is over, I'm here to relax. Hopefully you at least had an off day. Hopefully you weren't having to do the usual work travel throughout. Oh, thank you for the head pats. Let's see, there's the document. Which story shall we read first? Oh, that's among the Draugr. Oh, let's start with this one. So this is called... Oh, Holly, gonna settle into pew-pewing pirates and elite and listening? Okay. I hope the pew-pewing goes well. Alright, let's see now. The Argonian Maid, an oral tradition by Tellinger the Artificer. An explanation for the reoccurring amorous Argonian. Recently, I attended a stage production called The Lusty Argonian Maid. Bawdy, delightful, and filled with innuendo. I am surprised it was never presented in this form before. According to my research, the Lusty Argonian Maid has its origins in a long line of tales told by traveling bards, each with a slightly different title and premise, but the same end result. A female innocent succumbs to the charms of a dominant married male character. In the South, the tale was occasionally presented as the lusty Bosmeri and 2 moons for sugar. I've also heard Shornhelm's lusty orifice, the sandy spear of Alakir, and the maiden's tight hold in taverns across the north and northwest. In a stage play, each of the character archetypes is brought to life before the audience. Unless the acting is superb, the subject matter can come off flat and uninspired. Also, a play takes away from the verbal dexterity exhibited by a bard such as the legendary Khajiit Tale Singer. The feline bard described the various ploys used by the man to bring the maiden to her knees in a way that made one's pulse race and breath quicken, wondering what would come next. Indeed, much of the Argonian Maid borrows heavily from Tale Singer songs, uncredited, but naturally I recognize them immediately, in which the maiden helps the male with a spear, a loaf of bread, and a spilt flask of coconut milk. Fortunately, the players in the current production of The Lusty Argonian Maid are excellent, bringing this age-old tale to new heights. The reference to the spear of the hunter would bring laughter to the most sullen. And the wheel of cheese, well, I've never seen this variant before, but it was truly inspired. I foresee this play will outlive its humble beginnings as a fireside amusement, to become a choice bit of frivolous entertainment for generations to come. And that was the Argonian Maid, an oral tradition. Hi, Mick1984. Welcome, welcome. How's your evening going so far? I assume it's evening anyway. LibreOffice, you can do it. Let's see. of these out. Nice. I'm going to sleep in a moment. Ah, well, hopefully I can help you with that. Hopefully you have a nice, cozy bed. Pan, I don't remember the spelled flask one. I don't either. I'm familiar with the spear, which is volume 1. I'm familiar with the loaf of bread, which is volume 2. Definitely a very, very pointed, thinly veiled innuendo going on in those. But there isn't a volume 3 that I'm familiar with. And yeah, I'm unfamiliar with the spilt milk. I'm always curious if anybody else knows whether there are more Argonian-made stories out there. I know I've seen Volume 1, Volume 2, the Argonian made an oral tradition. And there is also a bound 2-volume text in Skyrim, I believe. I wonder. Yeah. It might have to be fanfic of some sort. 'Cause it looks like the official sources have Volume 1, Volume 2, that analysis of a stage version, and a lewd Argonian poem. Called the Fair Argonian Maiden, which is not a maid. Well, I'm sure if you go back far enough, a maid and a maiden are the same. But in modern times, a maid has definitely saucier, less innocent connotations than a maiden. Meanwhile, maiden is, I think, probably definitely innocent connotations, or what's it called? Subtext? Or an assumption of some level of innocence? Then again, with the lusty Argonian maid, it is very much an innocent Argonian maid beset by some married man. Let's see, what shall we read next? Let's read. This is a data dossier on a cold flame Atronach, which I think most people are familiar with a flame Atronach, but a cold flame Atronach is not something that I'm definitely not familiar with it at any rate. This is a Daedra dossier, Cold Flame Atronach, by Denagarath the Dread Archivist. Notes on the discovery of Cold Flame Atronachs. ordinary flame atronachs have been forbidden in our realm since the cretin Markinas Zexil conjured one in the palace, and its heat damaged Diligene's Ice Fangs number 4, one of the master's favorite sculptures. The banishment, however, left a hard-to-define gap in our realm's carefully balanced aesthetic of beautiful pain. An absent voice, if you will, from our chorus of terror and despair. I admitted, I missed the way their lissom forms curveted and twirled at the edge of vision, their expressions blank of all emotion, but for the avid hunger of the arsonist. I thus made it my purpose, when the duties of my office could spare me, to find a substitute for the exiled flame atronachs, some other conjurable entity that would replace the charismatic peril of their presence. As a note, flame atronachs tend to be these fairly lithe feminine figures that are definitely on fire, mostly made of fire, except for certain choice portions of their form. You can see what a flame atronach looks like with a quick search. Availing myself of the spare transliminal scanner stored in the Tower of Lies, I set myself the task of reviewing by survey all the Oblivion planes within range of its influx pseudocortex. I scanned over 37,000 different planes, chaos realms, and pocket realities before I found what I was looking for in DOP 9497.15, known to its curious inhabitants as the fourth sinus of Succubard. I immediately recognized the plane as a sort of decalescent inversion of DOP6, Infernus, well known to conjurers of all races as the home plane of the common flame atronach. In place of the extreme heat of Infernus, where molten rock flows like water, in Succubard, as we may call it for the sake of brevity, the bedrock is subjected to a cosmic degree of cold, causing its material bonds to slide apart and the stone to flow like cold lava. It was there, in Succubard, that I finally saw, in the insect-eyed lenses of the transliminal scanner, images of dry-rating atronachs that burned with cold blue flames. I had found what I sought. After that, modifying Coron's peremptory summons to address Succubard rather than Infernus was a matter of mere routine. Within 7 shifts, I had succeeded in summoning what we may term a cold flame atronach to Cold Harbor. As anticipated, rather than giving off unpleasant waves of heat, this was an elemental of cold fire, and there was a steep drop in ambient temperature in its presence. This, of course, was all to the good. In behavior, my cold flame atronach behaved in all ways like an ordinary flame atronach, and was just as irritable, casting blue fireballs at any who threatened it, and conjuring pillars of cold flame at need. This perfectly fills the niche of hovering sentry formerly filled in Cold Harbor by their igneous cousins, and that is the main function they now fulfill in our master's realm. So it sounds like this is Denogorath, the Dread Archivist, works in Cold Harbor, which is the realm of Molag Bal, if memory serves. The Daedric Prince of Domination, among other things. Yeah. Let's see. Let me get that stored away real quick. Let's see, what to read next? There's a lot on Daedra tonight. This'll do. So this is called Daedra Worship, the Chimer. So a little bit about Tamrielic history. One of the Mer, the elven races, was called the Chimer, and they worship some Daedra. One of the primary ones they worship is Azura. But one of the things that they did at some point was seek immortality and godhood. And I believe 3 of their number were able to. This would be, I believe, Vivek, Almanexia, and what was the other one? They're called the Tribunal. If you play Morrowind, Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, you can become a little more familiar with them. But, let me... let's see. Vivek, Almalexia, and Sotasil. Those were the ones. And when they attained godhood through, I forgot the exact means, Azura wasn't particularly happy with the race as a whole. And so she took their skin and made it ashen, a very ashy, dark gray, and turned their eyes this blood or ruby red, which, if you've played, and they went from being the Chimer to the Dunmer, is their name now. And so if you've ever played a Dunmer in any of the Elder Scrolls games or seen a Dunmer, which they are all over the place, they're everywhere in Morrowind, and then they're fairly common in Skyrim. And I don't know about Test 4 Oblivion. I don't know how common they are. They are still in there, but you can see what sort of countenance they have. The ruby red eyes are particularly striking, especially because compared to other races, they tend to have slightly more subdued colors. Bosmer, who are the wood elves, tend to have this almost an emerald green eye color, which itself can be fairly striking, but nothing quite as stand out as ruby red on somebody that has ashen gray skin. The common in the town furthest to the east in Tess 4. That would make sense. So geographically, Tess 4 Oblivion takes place, I believe mostly, if not completely, in Cyrodiil, which lies fairly central in Tamriel. And Morrowind, which is the traditional homeland of the Dunmer, lies to the east. And between the time of Tess 3 Morrowind and Tess 4 Oblivion, Red Mountain in Morrowind erupted. I believe Morrowind's, Tess 3 Morrowind's main character is partly responsible for that eruption, as a note. But there were, because of the eruption of Red Mountain, there were a lot of refugees. And so I imagine that would probably cause some Dunmer to evacuate west towards Cyrodiil. There is also another large number of Dunmer who evacuated to Skyrim. And you'll find them in the northeast city of Windhelm. Not Winterhold, that's further north. Windhelm. Unfortunately, they're relegated to a slum district of the city, but it's called the Grey Quarter. And then there are also Dunmer on Solstheim, which is an island off that coast toward Morrowind, which you can go to in Skyrim. Yes, miss. Would you like more attention? Here, let me get the stool over to where you are so that you can hop up on the stool. There you go. Come on. You know how to hop up on the stool. Come on. You know you get pets when you come up here. There you go. There you go. Sorry about that. Mew absolutely demands attention, unfortunately. She demands attention most of the time, but especially during stream. Something about me talking to the monitor seems to set off her kitty senses. Yes, miss? She's so cute, though. She's mostly a mottled, light brown and dark brown, and a little bit of orange on her top, but she has a ton of white running down her bottom side, including her whole chin, and she basically has like a big fluffy bib, and yes. Raven, Mom is talking to the strange square thing again. Which strange square thing? There's a ton of those around here. It's my 3 monitors, and then there is the keyboard and the one of the sound interfaces, and Mick. Meow. Yes? That's her being happy. Okay, I do actually have to get back to streaming, Have to make sure we eat. Okay. Yes? Is that not enough attention? Do you need more? Okay. So that is a little bit of the history of the Dunmer and, well, the Chimer, and why they are the Dunmer now. This is called Daedra worship, the Chimer, by Frostus of Elenhir. A description of Daedric worship by the Chimer. The history of Daedra worship by the elves once known as the Chimer provides a valuable object lesson in the dangers of trafficking with the so-called Lords of Oblivion. It's a tale of peril that modern-day apologists for Daedric worship, such as Lady Cinnabar, would do well to heed. Let's begin with a few facts that not even the Shrew of Tanith could deny. The Aedra, the gods, the divines, created Nirn out of the chaos of oblivion. They assumed physical form within the mortal plane, the Mundus, and, according to elven myth, were the direct ancestors of the Altmeri. The Aedra were the natural objects of holy reverence for the elves of the Dawn era, and the first organized religions venerated these divines. However, after Nirn was born, the Aedra withdrew from their creation, becoming distant, aloof, and disinterested in the affairs of mortals. But beyond the Mundus, in the infinite variation of oblivion, there were other godlike entities of great power, known as the Daedra. Literally the, quote, not Aedra, who began to take a malign interest in the realms the Aedra had created. Some of the more powerful of these entities, the so-called Daedric princes, who ruled entire planes of their own, were nonetheless jealous of the mortals of Nirn, for they had inherited the Aedric capacity of creation. This ability was beyond the Daedra, who, the masters of change and metamorphosis, create nothing new that has not been before. However, one quality the Daedric princes shared with the young mortals of Nirn was a lust for power in all its forms. This corrupting desire is the foundation of all mortal worship of the Daedra. The princes offer power in return for service and worship. Most often, this power comes in the form of knowledge, the most seductive and least perilous seeming of the Daedric temptations. To show how seductive this temptation can be, reflect upon the early Aldmer of Somerset. Though in their arrogance they considered themselves the lineal descendants of the Aedra, nonetheless the first large-scale religious sect espousing Daedra worship was born in the heart of Somerset itself. There, in the rainbow shadow of the Crystal Tower, the so-called Prophet Veloth communed with the Daedric prince Boethia and agreed to accept her gifts. He inscribed the Velothi prophecies which expounded the doctrine of worship of the, quote, good Daedra, unquote. As a note, Boethia, Azura, and Mephala, along with ways to propitiate and negotiate with the, quote, bad Daedra, unquote, Molag Bal, Malacath, Sheogorath, and Mehrunes Dagon. As a personal note, this is only 7 of the 18 Daedric princes that we know of. To the more foolish of the Somerset Aldmeri, the arts and skills of the good Daedra offered to teach them seemed more useful than the maxims and platitudes of the priests of the Aedra, and a number of elven clans accepted Veloth as their prophet and guide. When the Sapiarchs of Alinor rightfully prohibited this schism, Veloth led the clans loyal to him out of the Isles and across the sea to the far side of Tamriel, where they colonized the domain now known as Morrowind. As a geographical note, the Somerset Isles are islands off of the southeast corner of Tamriel, and Morrowind is in the east-northeast region. The followers of Saint Veloth, who became known as the Chimer, were willing to trade the paradise of golden Somerset for the purgatory of Ashen Morrowind, all in return for the illusory gifts of the Daedra. The Chimer built mighty temples to Boethia, Azura, and Mephala, and established the traditions of worship in Morrowind that were later co-opted by the Tribunal. As even the beginning student of history knows, this large-scale dabbling with Daedra led inevitably to warfare and catastrophe. Chimer civilization fell at the Battle of Red Mountain, and the Curse of Azura, their erstwhile mistress, transformed the brilliant Chimer into the sullen and haunted Dummer. After that time, Morrowind, under the Tribunal, turned its back on worship of the Daedra, but by then the damage had been done. Today, the Daedra are feared and abhorred across the length and breadth of Tamriel, and rightly so. Yet, despite the clear lessons of history, some misguided souls still insist that traffic with Daedra lords can be tolerated, even accepted. To those such as you, Lady Cinnabar, I say beware. What pact with the Daedra ever ended well? And that was Daedra worship, the Chimer. I'm glad that I talked about the Chimer, Dummer, Tribunal, Azura, like all of that, right, at the beginning. They were definitely mentioned. I didn't realize they would be, but they were mentioned throughout the rest of the book, and hopefully that gave you a little more context to wrap your mind around the history of the Dummer and what happened there. Of course, anybody who's played probably any of the Elder Scrolls has trafficked with Daedra. I'm fairly sure that pretty much any protagonist of the Elder Scrolls games has a handful, a half dozen, if not more, Daedra, uh, who have dibs on their soul when they die. And they're going to get to fight over that soul when they die. Oh, when the protagonist dies. Actually, if memory serves, I recently came upon a short, funny fanfic of the Daedra fighting over the soul of the Skyrim protagonist, the Dragonborn. Because that's a particularly powerful soul, right? It's the soul of somebody who draws actual dragon blood. And yeah, there's quite a few Daedra. There's, I believe, 18. I believe we can pledge our soul to most of them in Skyrim. Let me do an ad break real quick just to get the pre-roll ads turned off. Just take a quick break. It'll be 3 minutes, and I won't read anything important in that time. And I will see you back in 3. And let me boost the Fetty poster real quick as well. Let's see. There we go. All right. And perhaps for the rest of you here, let's take a quick 20 seconds to look somewhere other than our screens, perhaps 10 to 20 meters away, so that we can rest our eyes. Unfortunately, the tracking doesn't do well past about 60 degrees. I don't know what the tracking is like with iPhone tracking, but I know webcam tracking just really does not do well at this angle. It's always interesting to see my my head bobble about, you know, just boing, 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 because it can't quite decide where I actually am, despite the fact that I'm not actually moving. As a note, does anybody have any questions about what we've read so far? Any terms that confused you? Any locations? Any concepts? So I'll always answer as well as I can. I'm definitely not as knowledgeable as some people out there when it comes to Elder Scrolls lore. Oh, I was actually just recently watching somebody, primarily an artist, but she was going through the Elder Scrolls games for the first time, and her boyfriend evidently is a real Elder Scrolls nerd and a lore, very, very normal about Elder Scrolls lore. And so as she was playing her first time through Morrowind, we were talking about the lore of various things that, you know, that come up, and it was a lot of fun. And I was trying to explain certain things without also spoiling Morrowind or Oblivion or Skyrim, which is its own challenge. Let's see. There we go. Alright, welcome back, everyone. What shall we read next? That was... we did the Cold Flame Atronach, we did Daedra Worship the Chimer. Perhaps on the true nature of Daedra. This is a daedrologist's speculation on the biology of the Daedra. Which is, a lot of these come from a section called Research. These are various research texts that characters within the Elder Scrolls world have compiled. They're very much in the in a similar vein to On Oblivion, right? That was Morian Zenis, I believe was his name, where he was researching. He and his apprentice were researching Daedra and the Daedric, or the realms of Oblivion. And yeah, these were their notes. Of course, I wish these were a little longer. Some of them are terribly, terribly short. It's just a few thousand characters, below 1,000 words. And really, I wish more of the books were, 2,000 to 5,000 words would be a wonderful, just meaty length. Oh, I totally forgot to change the categories when we started reading. Oh well. At least I wasn't in like the Octopath Traveler category or anything like that. So this is called On the True Nature of Daedra by Canon Mildil, leading scholar of daedrology. A daedrologist's speculation on the biology of Daedra. I uncovered this little-known fact about Daedra while standing next to two heavily armed Shivili warriors engaged in an activity with a pair of what I could only assume were oddly shaped dice. They were talking about which of them had the stronger will and could force the dice to roll in their favor. There were many promises of dismemberment, as I recall, but the thing that stood out to me was the implication that these Shivili could influence and control the roll of an admittedly strange set of dice. Assuming, as always, that is what they were. If they could force the dice to move without touching them, what else could they exert their will upon? I raced back to my study and began working through the possibilities until I reached this conclusion. Daedra do not move their corporeal forms in the way that most mortals do. Instead, Their consciousness floats adjacent to their bodies, allowing them to influence the body or another object as they please. This explains how Daedra are vanquished and not killed. How they are able to move with the skill and grace heretofore unavailable to mortals. It even explains how Watchers can float without the use of wings. Lesser scholars will say that the latter point is facilitated through the use of magic. But that is too easy an explanation. Another of my many great discoveries indicates that Dremora are the only strictly herbivorous Daedra. They do not need to ingest foodstuffs in order to maintain their existence, but consuming flesh of any sort results in internal distress. The level of pain they experience makes many Daedra reconsider their current experiences and voluntarily return to oblivion in the hopes that they will reform in a less pain-filled state. That would be really convenient as a note. Finally, Daedric intelligence is not correlated to the intelligence of the prince they serve. Now, this may not seem that unusual, as the most foolish of mortal rulers often receive guidance from highly intelligent advisors. When Daedra serve a prince whose portfolio includes such concepts as knowledge or cunning, it would seem illogical to have a scamp command a more intelligent Scaffin. However, this is precisely the situation I observed. I will not divulge actual names, that would be cruel and not very scholarly, but I have observed a Scaffin who allowed himself to be led by a scamp. The scamp chattered away at a fast pace and appeared to be making many good points, while the Scaffin trudged dutifully behind. These findings will be expanded upon later, as I am still conducting experiments and recording additional observations on Daedric behavior. I, to the best of my knowledge, am the only Daedrologist who follows a purely scientific method of information gathering. I rely on no input from the Daedra I study, as they cannot be trusted to report truths or remain objective. As such, my discoveries tend to be a long time in the making, but of exceptional quality. Due to my unique methods and the number of staggering discoveries I've made, I can say that I am the foremost scholar in this field. You wouldn't get truths like this from Pelagius Habor, would you? And that was On the Nature of Daedra by Canon Meldil, the, quote, leading scholar of Daedrology. Definitely quite a bit of ego in that book. Other authors at least try to mask it a little bit. This one just has absolutely no qualms about it. Ah, so this is another book by that same Canon Mildill, quote, leading scholar of daedrology. Let's see. Let me get this formatted properly so that it doesn't blind me partway through. And before I forget, I need to take a sip. If you can, take a sip yourselves as well, okay? The kitty ears have been up there for a little while. I forgot how to turn them off. Nope, wrong one. Nope. Where did I put that blasted thing? Nope, that's not it either. Help, I've forgotten how to become not a cat. Let's see. Oh, that's why. Okay. There we go. So I haven't figured out how to turn it off by default, or I would have set it to, say, 30 minutes or something. Let's see. Oh. Okay. So this is On the Nature of Oblivion by Canon Mildill, the aforementioned, quote, leading scholar of daedrology. A daedrologist's speculation of the underlying laws of oblivion. With a highly successful record of teasing the most ingenious conclusions out of the years of daedric studies, I, daedrologist Canon Mildill, am putting my sizable intellect to use in enhancing the sphere of knowledge surrounding the greatest mystery of all time, the true nature of oblivion. As we all know, oblivion exists within the Erebus and contains the various daedric realms. But what is oblivion? Specifically, what exists in the space between the realms? It has been suggested that the void between the realms is inherently hostile. No corporeal life can reside there, and no corporeal life witnesses the dark expanse between the planes and returns from the experience unscathed. Daedra themselves refuse to discuss it. I put forth that, as with all uncaring forces, oblivion is not fundamentally hostile, but in its unforgiving nature rests a dangerous predilection for destruction. To expound further, what we call oblivion does not hold life in contempt, but it does not care about upholding or maintaining life either. This results in quite a large number of realms colliding with each other, as their nature and direction dictate. Many planes are fortunate to have a Daedric prince or other force controlling their movement through oblivion. The ones that do not are often crushed by the path their undirected course dictates. Evidence of these ill-fated planes can be seen in the watery reflections of the realms of revelry, or in the dreams of quagmire. As a personal note, the realms of revelry is the realm of Sanguine, who is the Daedric prince of debauchery and overindulgence. And Quagmire is the realm of Vermina, Daedric prince of dreams. And I believe the Morian Zenith travels through Quagmire in the book The Doors of Oblivion. They are well documented. See the books Troubled Thoughts of a Corrupt Man, or Sanguine's Rights and Realms, both written by the fabled prisoner of Evergloam. Scholars of Oblivion have struggled to reconcile the myriad of truths that can exist at once within the waters of Creatia. They bash their heads against the question of how is this possible, and why is viable mortal life found in so few locations, while immortal life thrives? These questions are absolute drivel. I would postulate that any and all questions about oblivion can be directed to the worshippers of Hermaeus Mora or Clavicus Vile. Hermaeus Mora and the scholars of Apocrypha remain the most reliable source for true scholarly inquiry, but I personally believe that it's best to go right to the source for answers to questions concerning oblivion. For those who are proficient of thought, you may already have concluded that I deem Clavicus Vile to be the foremost expert on the ways of oblivion. I would even go so far as to say that he has had a hand in dictating the way it behaves. Anyone who disputes this claim should remember that not much is known about oblivion. It behaves in complex and erratic ways. What better Daedric prince to hold dominion over something as chaotic as oblivion than the master of insidious wishes? To prove my postulations, I have first consulted with Scoffin in the Fields of Regret and entreated them with my queries. For the gift of my curiosity, they allowed me to study their behavior see my book on the true nature of Daedra, which we just read. During my time, I subtly asked them what they thought of Oblivion. One helpfully suggested that mortals too can recover from fatalities in the chaos of Croatia. I plan to conduct an experiment and have enlisted the help of the Scarfin Mazphilax to test whether mortals can reform in Croatia as Daedra do. He has agreed to meet me some 30 years hence, thus allowing me to make more progress in my studies, just in case the experiment doesn't yield the results I am expecting. And that was on the nature of Oblivion. Let's see now. Shall we read something maybe that we've read before, perhaps? I don't remember which books we've read and which books which books we've read last stream, which was just a few days ago, right? As opposed to books that we haven't read in a while. And then there's the books that I've read as videos and actually uploaded to YouTube as standalones. Oh, which ones shall we read? A personal little favorite of mine is The Rear Guard. This is a fairly long book, as these things go. Let me get it formatted real quick. Who does not love long books? Really depends. From some authors, longer books feel like a slog. From some authors, it feels totally fine. That said, also, you know, we don't have infinite amounts of time, so... sorry, not as a stream, but, you know, as just humans, right? And so often, longer books can be, you know, bigger time sinks, right? I know Terry Pratchett's books, the Discworld books, are actually fairly short. They're... I mean, they're still meals, right? But, no, they don't go too heavy on the pages. I believe they tend to be 100 and something pages. Not quite, well, sort of bite size. Full stories, but... And those tend to feel fairly decent. I mean, you know, in Discworld there are 42 or 43 books, right? And trying to read them all while they were 300-400 pages each would be daunting, if nothing else. And having them be that, not 300-400 pages in length, definitely makes them more approachable. Now, let us see. Interesting. Oh. I completely forgot that, let's see. Holly messaged me the sound settings that she uses. Interesting. Okay, I see now. Wait a minute, is that, that's that. And that's that. That makes sense. And that makes sense. Let me throw one or two of these filters on real quick. Just do that. We'll see how the audio quality is just from that. I wonder. Oh, Hazel Dust, welcome. How's your evening going so far? Thank you for the settings, Holly. Hopefully. Looks like it's doing okay. No weird voice quality change, hopefully. You woke up a bit late, but alive. About you? Same for me. Fairly late the last few days. Partly from exhaustion. I had a physical therapy appointment on Thursday, and long story short, the physical therapist and I figured out that about 2 minutes of walking pace was about what my body could handle at one time before it started getting into a range of exertion that would actually start damaging my body. Long COVID, right? And that trip alone took 30 minutes of walking. Like, I was taking the bus and stuff, right? But it still takes a while to walk to the bus, and then from the bus to the physical therapist, and then the trip back too, right? So, I've been exhausted the last few days. Miss Artificer. Artificer or Artificer? Welcome. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Succubard's library. I do everything from super dry Tamrielic history to just readings of the Lusty Argonian Maid. Lusty Argonian Maid? Yeah, Lusty Argonian Maid and the Sultry Argonian Bard. There we go. Artifice. Okay, artificer. I know, depending on the region of the world, sometimes it's artificer, sometimes it's artificer. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. Either works, really? Okay. Maybe I'll just use both, and then eventually one will click. I showed a friend your stream, and they fell in love with your voice. Oh, I'm glad they did, and thank you for sharing. Still a work in progress. Hopefully I can get it smoother and gentler and warmer. And maybe more sultry. We'll figure that part out eventually. How are you doing today? Fairly decent. A little late on the wake up and breakfast, but on the whole, fairly decent. Especially since I was a smart little Succubard today, and have an actual thermos of tea. Oh, that audible blush. Go, just a little bit of tea in the mug. What kind of tea? This is just some English breakfast with some lemon juice. And a very generous dollop or two of honey. It's what keeps my voice going. These sorts of streams tend to be a lot more stressful on my voice compared to gaming streams. Gaming streams I can get away with not having tea, right? Reading streams? Absolutely not. In fact, I've found that one mug of tea, which is, I mean, this mug of tea holds at least 500 milliliters. It just wasn't enough. And so I have the 500 mils of tea in the mug that I came up with, as well as about 600 to 700 mils in the thermos. So, sir, English breakfast is good. I've been hooked on echinacea and lemon. Is that the correct pronunciation? Echinacea? Probably not. Not echinacea, right? It's not a sort of tea that I'm familiar with, though. Although, I'm not much of a tea person. I know chamomile exists, English breakfast exists, Darjeeling, Japanese, so like green tea and barley tea, right? And like actual green tea, like the green stuff, not the brown green tea that we get in the US. And then there's matcha, which is powdered, and I believe I got a little bit of Scottish breakfast in as well that I'm going to try. And we'll see how that goes. Echinacea. Ah, the C that's pronounced sh. Okay. Echinacea. It coats the throat and helps soothe the vocal cords. Oh, that. It doesn't happen to have licorice in it, does it? I know a lot of, or at least like the 3 throat soothing teas that I've seen so far have licorice in them, black licorice. and I'm not so fond of the flavor. And as much as I do want a throat soothing effect, I also detest licorice, so I would at least like to enjoy my tea while it soothes me. I've never put licorice in it, I just put honey. Ah, okay, good to hear. Some teas are, they're a mix of various things, and the ones that I'm thinking of are a throat soothing mix that have the licorice in it, so I was a little afraid, but echinacea tea. I'm going to write that down. Well, write, type it out. Is the spelling? Echinacea. There it is. Yeah, honey is really nice. Although the lemon juice to offset it is also really nice too. So this is a story called The Rear Guard. Oh, nice warm tea. Gosh, that feels so nice. The Rear Guard by Tennis Moral. How a lone man guards a besieged castle, and how he obtains his food. The castle would hold. No matter the forces, the walls of Cascabel Hall would never fail. But that was small consolation for Menega. He was hungry. In fact, he had never been so hungry. The well in the atrium of the fortress supplied him with enough water to hold there until the 4th era. But his stomach reminded Menega minute to minute that he needed food. The wagon load of supplies mocked him. When his army, the forces of the King of Solitude, had left Cascabel Hall, and he had manned the battlements as the rear guard to protect their retreat, they had left a wagon behind to supply him with enough food for months. It was not until the night after they left that he inspected the larder and found that nothing edible was in the wagon. Trunk after trunk was filled with netch armor from the army's incursions into Morrowind. Apparently, his Nord confederates had assumed that the lightly opaque material was hardtack in aspic. If the Dunmer, whose caravan had been raided, knew about this, they would never be able to stop laughing. Menega thought that his fellow mercenary and kinswoman, Erin, would have found this amusing as well. She had spoken with great authority about netch leather, being an expert of sorts on light armor, but she had made a point to mention that it could not be eaten like other leather in occasions of hardship. It was a pity she couldn't be there to enjoy the irony, Menega thought savagely. She had returned to Morrowind even before the king's army had left, preferring a life as a wanted fugitive to a free existence in the cold of Skyrim. All the weeds in the courtyard had been devoured by the rearguard's 16th day manning Cascabel Hall. The entire castle had been scoured. Rotten tubers in the mulch pile found and consumed, a dusty bouquet in the Countess's bedchamber eaten. Almost every rat and insect but the most cunning infesting the castle walls had been tracked down and gobbled up. The castellan's chambers, filled with acrid, inedible law books, had yielded up a couple crumbs of bread. Menninger had even scraped the moss from the stones. There was no denying it. He would be dead from starvation before his army returned to break the ranks of the enemies who surrounded the fortress. The worst part, said Menninger, who had taken to talking to himself on only the second day alone in the castle, is how close sustenance is. A vast arbor of golden apples stretched acre after acre near the castle walls. The sunlight cast a seductive gleam on the fruit, and the cruel wind carried sweet smells into Cascabel to torture him. Like most Bosmer, Menninger was an archer. He was a master of long and medium distance fighting. But in close quarters, as he would be if he dared leave the castle and enter the enemy camp in the arbor, he knew he would not last long. At some point, he knew he would have to try. But he had been dreading the day. It was upon him now. Menninger put on the netch armor for the first time, feeling the powdery, almost velvet texture of the rendered leather against his skin. There was also a barely perceptible throb, which he recognized as the remnant nematocysts of the netch's venomous flesh still tingling months after its death with domesticated poison. The combination made him feel energized. Erin had described the sensation perfectly, just as she had explained how to defend himself while wearing netch leather armor. Under cover of night, Menninger crept out of the back gate of the castle, locking it behind him with the rather cumbersome key. He made for the arbors quietly as he could, but a passing sentry coming behind a tree saw him. Remaining calm, Menninger did as he remembered Erin had instructed, only moving after the attack had been launched. The sentry's blade glided across the armor and knocked to the left, throwing the young man off balance. That was the trick, as he understood it. You had to be prepared to be hit, and merely move with the blow, allowing the membranous armor to divert the injury away, using your enemy's momentum against him, as Erin used to say. There were several more close encounters in the arbor, but each swing of an axe and each thrust of a sword found purchase elsewhere. With handfuls of apples, Menninger ran the gauntlet back to the castle. He locked the back gate door behind him and fell into an orgy of eating. For week after week, the Bosmer stole out to gather his food. The guards began anticipating his raids, but he kept his schedule irregular and always remembered when attacked to wait for the blow, accept it, and then turn. In such a way, he lived and survived his lonely vigil in Cascabel Hall. 4 months later, as he was preparing for another seizure of apples, Menninger heard a loud clamor at the front gate. Surveying the group from a safe distance on the battlements, he saw the shields of the King of Solitude, his ally, the Count of Cascabel, and their enemy, the King of Fahren. Evidently, a truce had been called. Menninger opened the gates, and the combined armies flooded the courtyard. Many of the knights of Fahren sought to shake the hand of the man they had named the Shadow of the Arbor, expressing their admiration at his defensive skills and apologizing good-naturedly for their attempts to slay him. Only doing their job, you know? There's hardly an apple left on the vines, said the King of Solitude. Well, I started on the edges and worked my way in, explained Menninger. I brought back extra fruit to tempt the rats out of the wall so I could have a little meat as well. We've spent the last several months working out the details of our truce, said the king. Really quite exhausting. In any rate, the Count will be taking back possession of his castle now, but there is a small detail we need to work out. You're a mercenary, and as such responsible for your own expenses. If you had been a subject of mine, things might be different, but there are certain rules of law that must be respected. Menninger anticipated the strike. The problem is, the king continued, you've taken a good deal of the Count's crops while here. By any reasonable computation, you've eaten an equal amount equal to or likely exceeding your mercenaries' wages. Obviously, I would not want to penalize you for the excellent job you've done defending the castle in uncomfortable circumstances, but you agree that it's important that we observe the old rules of law, don't you? Of course, replied Menninger, accepting the blow. I'm delighted to hear that, said the king. Our estimation is that you owe the Count of Cascabel 37 imperial gold. Which I'll gladly pay to myself with interest after the autumn-tide harvest, said Menninger. There's more left on the vine than you suggest. The kings of Solitude and Fahren and the Count of Cascabel stared at the Bosmer. We agreed to abide to the strictest old rules of law, and I've had time to read a great many books over the time you were making a truce. In Third Era 246, during the reign of Uriel IV, the Imperial Council, in an attempt to clear up some questions of property rights in Skyrim during those chaotic days, decreed that any man without a liege who occupied a castle for more than 3 months would be granted the rights and titles of that estate. It's a good law, of course, meant to discourage absent and foreign landlords. Menninger smiled, feeling the now familiar sensation of a glancing strike diverting. By the rule of law, I am the Count of Cascabel. The rearguard's son still hold the title of Count of Cascabel, and he grows the finest, most delectable apples in the Empire. And that was The Rearguard by Tennis Morrow. Anybody that's played Morrowind and probably Skyrim, the Dragonborn DLC, would probably be familiar with Netch leather armor. Beautifully spoken. Thank you, thank you. Content hits a scratch I didn't know I had. It was extremely relaxing. Glad to hear it. There's a lot of really, really interesting books in the test games. And I think most people... I was actually going to put up a poll on my social media at some point, seeing... So there's going to be people that just haven't played the games, right? Between like Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and Elder Scrolls Online. But then I was hoping the other two options to see what the ratio would be. People that have played and don't really read the books. And then people that play and read some, fair proportion of the books that they come across. I know in my playing, when I'm actually playing the Elder Scrolls games, I'm definitely not reading too much. There definitely were some books that I read, but on the whole, there are things that I want to do, and I just come across 7 books, and reading them front to back, even a skim, can take a lot of time, and even a few minutes may feel fairly long when you're actually playing the game. And of course, there may be people that just don't read any of the books, right? And there's going to be people that read some of the books. And I'm going to guess that I'll probably put this as a 4th option. I read nearly every book that I come across, which I'm just going to say that that's probably going to be nobody. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting books. So I get to sit here and just, read through them. And it's been interesting so far. Like, Elder Scrolls isn't all I read, but it's been the vast majority of the books that I've read on, or the literature that I've read on stream. And it's been a lot of fun. Like, genuinely a lot of fun. I need to find the right tab. There we go. Although there have been, I have found out that a fair number of the Elder Scrolls books involve horror in one form or another. I think one of the first books that we read, the very first stream, the conclusion, the punchline was, "Oops, you're trapped by cannibals." And that was a thing. And then there's another series of books called, so we were talking about Oblivion earlier, right? And there's a book called On Oblivion. So both of these are up on the YouTube as individual separate readings, but there's On Oblivion, which is written by Morian Zenas, and it talks about the Daedric princes and the realms of Oblivion. And then there is its sequel, effectively, which isn't written by Morian Zenas himself, but his apprentice, who helped with a lot of the research, especially as Morian Zenas got older and was able to find a way into the realms of oblivion, which was his goal. And that, at first, it sounds similar. It has a similar tone to On Oblivion, very much research notes. But as the book goes on, it becomes tinged with horror. And then, by the last few lines, it's very much, it's not a gory horror. It's, is it psych horror? Psychological horror? I'm not much of a horror person, so like the Elder Scrolls books are about as deep into horror as I get, so I don't know, but I think it's psych horror. Morrowind was your first RPG? Oh, that must have been a treat. As dated as Morrowind is nowadays, it's still a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful RPG, right? And especially Morrowind has more tabletop RPG elements compared to Oblivion and Skyrim, which feel like they've tilted more towards action RPG. Maybe we were talking about this in whose stream was it? The stream that I met you in, I think. Can you remind me of who that was? I do want to shout them out, but I don't remember their exact name. Maddie Biscuits, it was Maddie Biscuits, right? Maddie Biscuits. Maddie Biscuits. Yeah, there we go. Wait. Oh! Yeah, Mastodon. That's what. Okay, that makes sense because, yeah, Maddie Biscuits also puts up stream alerts on Mastodon, Fetty. Maddie Biscuits. They're an artist, but also does. This is the streamer that I was talking about earlier, who is playing their first Elder Scrolls game, and it's Morrowind. And then I think she plans to go once they're done. When she's done with, oops, sorry, chat, I bumped the mic. When she gets done with Morrowind, then proceed on to Oblivion and to Skyrim. And she was using the boat, right, yeah. Pen, I do love horror books. On one of the videos, I think it was the Doors of Oblivion, one of the YouTube comments on there was that my voice would be really good for reading stories out of the No Sleep subreddit, which I'm going to, guess, probably correctly, that it's a horror stories subreddit. And I had to explain to them that it's really flattering. But also, I really not much of I can't really handle horror. I tend to be really heavily affected by the media that I engage with, and the art that I engage with, and even when I watch things like anime, right? For those that know the series Madoka Magica, right? There are some heavy parts of that, as I gather it. Heavy enough that, with what I know, I don't want to watch it. I adore magical girl anime. I love the aesthetic, and the soundtrack is literally composed by my favorite composer, Kajiura Yuki, right? And I adore the soundtrack. Like, I can literally play pieces from the soundtrack. But I also know that it would probably affect me a little too heavily. And when stuff like that affects me, it tends to really, really affect me for, a good week, right? One of the first times that, so for those who don't know, I had to recently put down violin because of worsening long COVID in about February, but I've been playing basically my whole life, and one of the first times that I made somebody cry with my performance way back when I was a teenager was a time when I was, playing a fairly slow, feely, emotional piece, but a few days earlier, I had watched some anime that had really, really affected me, and like in a visceral way. And that performance was me just projecting those feelings outward. And yeah. So nowadays, I'm not going to avoid everything that makes me feel uncomfortable. But when I know that something deals with really heavy topics, I tend to shy away from that sort of series. That's all right. There's a lot more to read besides horror. Yeah, definitely is. Although Elder Scrolls seems to be about 30% horror, whether it's gory or psych horror. It's Raven, I got scared by almost any type of horror medium. Coward bird. I suppose it's sort of ironic being a raven, isn't it? Usually people think crows and ravens, it's dark things, ill omens, that sort of thing, right? Or dark omens. But nope, the raven is scared of horror. Which, understandable, me too. But understandable, a few years ago I saw a thriller movie that affected me for a couple of weeks. Yeah. I'm also not so fond of, jump scares, right? I do sometimes enjoy watching, Let's Plays, especially of series actually, horror series, because I can't play them myself very much. And so series like the Fatal Frame games, they're called Zero in Japanese. But it's always about a haunted place, and you get a little camera, and that is your only defense against usually a whole village or a whole expansive traditional Japanese estate, or an old-timey, 19, probably 20s, early 1900s Japanese hospital, on some remote island, right? Not horror that I could personally play, but it is interesting to see those stories while somebody else is playing them. Although the stories they tend to be tragedies, which I'm not so fond of either. That may be part of why I don't like horror, is just I already have enough getting me down in my life. I'm not so fond of tragedies. Although, FF10, yeah, I'm not even fond of super bittersweet endings so much. But Final Fantasy X felt satisfyingly bittersweet. The bitter brought out so much of the rest of the flavors, it felt like. And it made, it made sense. It wasn't just an out of the blue oops. It tied up threads of the narrative. It explained certain things about the narrative. And it really it reinforced the themes of Final Fantasy X. And so I begrudgingly have to call the bittersweet ending of Final Fantasy X. Well done, very well done. Um, I suppose Final Fantasy IX is sort of like that too when it comes to Vivi, right? But again, that's very much in theme. It, is explained. It's not out of the blue. It's not unnecessary. Like unnecessary tragedy is life already has plenty of that. I don't need more unnecessary tragedy. Zard was there. I'll be honest, I didn't really like the ending of 10 very much. That's okay too. Don't have to like the same stuff. Kind of like I don't like a lot of horror. Meanwhile, I know a lot of people that suffer, a lot of hardships in their life that feel catharsis through sad stories, through horror, through, seeing these things in a different context that can be slightly disconnected from your own visceral experiences. And even as a way of processing things like trauma. So yeah, 10, it was too sad for you. Yeah, I can definitely understand that as somebody who normally feels that way about most bittersweet or sad endings. Ah, 404 followers. Followers not found. Ben, I've used short writing to process trauma before. Yeah, that's another big one. Is using writing, whether it's journaling or whether it's writing fiction, to process feelings, including trauma. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because, like, writing things down, or even just explaining things to somebody else, or, like, confiding in someone else, right? It, it gives. It can allow you to not only get a better grip on the overall picture, but also to really process those feelings, right? And often to externalize those feelings and see it in a different context, in a different light, right? And it honestly feels like sometimes it feels like with one of the best ways to really learn a topic is to teach it, to explain it to somebody else, right? In programming, it's the rubber ducky effect, right? Where you have a rubber ducky on the desk and you explain your code to the rubber ducky as a way of figuring out what is wrong with the code so that you can fix the code. And teaching is, much the same way, where often I've taught various topics throughout my life. Usually it was English and Japanese because they're both native languages to me, right? So, yeah. And then also violin as well, and a few other things besides. But often, even with violin, where it's something that I've done, like it was my whole life for a good bit of that. Teaching was a thing that really consistently forced me to re-examine what I know, why I know it, why it's done that way. Are there other options, right? And so yeah, it's a really, a really valuable tool. Feels really connected to the to writing things out. Again, even with not fiction, right? But even just with journaling, it feels like you're sort of re-examining things. Anyway, not quite sure where I was going with that. But let me do a quick ad break and a water break. And then we'll continue reading. Ad's gonna be 3 minutes, and I'll be back in usually 5-ish minutes. So yeah. Stretch, sip, munch, hydrate or die straight? Oh no. Oh dear. There are a few people in chat that are straight, but that's definitely a lot of the rainbow here. So yeah, I will do ads. I'll also throw in chat. Be right back, 5-ish minutes. There we go. And it's just a joke that passes around a Discord server I'm in. That's fair. Anyway, be right back. And I'm back. Everyone had a decent break. Pour myself just a little bit more tea before we start on another story. It's so nice to have warm tea. Oh, also, speaking of Discord, completely forgotten to plug it, I think. Unless the bot has been properly doing its job, I think. But there we go. If you'd like to join us in Discord, talk about geeky things. There's also updates and stream alerts. Generally, I tend to I try to give people warning an hour or two ahead of time if I can. I try. Well, sometimes I give a vague like I'll be streaming probably this day sort of updates, but not the sort of super strict schedule that some streamers are able to do. And it's partly I don't know what my body is capable of at any point in time. It's really I wish I could be I wish I could reliably say yes, my body can totally handle this, but often just like the physical therapy trip this Thursday, I thought I had scheduled like Thursday and Friday to be like just null days, right? Just it's going to take a day and a half's worth, or a day to 2 days worth of stamina, and I'm just going to spend it on this medical trip because it's necessary. I mean, I did end up getting a lot of good info out of it, but then I hadn't projected that I would also be pretty wiped out yesterday as well, a third day. Even today, it's not the most well rested. I'm still sleeping a good, God, 9 hours ish. So, yeah. Let's see. Gonna take a sip. And boost the Betty post, and then also if you'd like to follow me over on Mastodon/Betty/Miski/ that whole web of software, I do have an account. That's my primary social media. Let's see. What am I looking for? Right, there we go. There is, this story, okay. That, and what other books shall we read today? Maybe 1 or 2 more. Instruction, research. Gods, there are so many books to choose from. I thought I had a good number today, but we've eaten through quite a few of those. Let me check a different archive. Oh, let's see. Oh, join the Discord? Thank you. And welcome, look. Yeah, that's... Oof, that is dense. Wither shins. Rear guard. Oh, another favorite book of mine. Right. So this one's sort of horror too. Although it's also satisfying, kind of like the rearguard was. Make sure this is formatted so it's not going to blind me as I read it. There we go. All right. So this is called The Locked Room by Porbert Letumley. Now a pupil outlocks her cruel lockpick instructor. Yana was precisely the kind of student her mentor Arthkamu despised. The professional amateur. He enjoyed all the criminal types who were his usual pupils at the stronghold, from the common burglar to the more sophisticated blackmailers, children and young people with strong career ambitions which the art and science of lockpicking could facilitate. They were always interested in simple solutions, the easy way. But people like Yana were always looking for exceptions, possibilities, exotica. For pragmatists like Arthkamu, it was immensely vexing. The Redguard Maiden would spend hours in front of a lock, prodding at it with her wires and picks, flirting with the key pins and driver pins, exploring the hull with a sort of casual fascination that no delinquent possesses. Long after her fellow students had opened their test locks and moved on, Yana was still playing with hers. The fact that she always opened it eventually, no matter how advanced a lock it was, irked Arthkamu even further. "You're making things much too difficult," he would roar, boxing her ears. "Speed is of the essence, not merely technical know-how. I swear that if I put the key to the lock right in front of you, you'd still never get around to opening it." Yana would bear Arthkamu's abuse philosophically. She had, after all, paid him in advance. Speed was doubtless an important factor for the picker trying to get somewhere they weren't supposed to go, with the city guard on patrol behind them, but Yona knew it wouldn't apply to her. She merely wanted the knowledge. Arthkamu did everything he could think of to encourage Yona to move faster. She seemed to perversely thrive on his physical and verbal blows, spending more and more time on each lock, learning its idiosyncrasies and personality. Finally, he could bear it no longer. Very late one afternoon, after Yana had dawdled over a perfectly ordinary lock, he grabbed the girl by her ear and dragged her to a room in the stronghold, far from the other students, an area they had always been forbidden to visit. The room was completely barren, except for one large crate in the center. There were no windows and no other doors except for the one leading in. Arthkamu slammed his student against the crate and closed the door behind her. There was a distinct click of the lock. "This is the test for my advanced students," he laughed behind the door. "See if you can escape." Yona smiled and began her usual slow process of massaging the lock, gaining information. After a few minutes had gone by, she heard Arthkamu's voice again call out from behind the door. "Perhaps I should mention that this is a test of speed. You see, the crate behind you contains a vampire ancient who has been locked in here for many months. Is absolutely ravenous. In a few minutes' time, the sun will have completely set, and if you have not opened the door, you will be nothing but a bloodless husk." Yona considered only for a moment whether Arthkamu was joking or not. She knew he was an evil, horrible man. But to resort to murder to teach his pupil? The moment she heard a rustling in the crate, any doubts she had were erased. Ignoring all her usual explorations, she jammed her wire into the lock, thrust the pegs against the pressure plate, and shoved open the door. Arthkamu stood in the hallway beyond, laughing cruelly. "So, now you've learned the value of fast work." Yona fled from Arthkamu's stronghold, fighting back her tears. He was certain that she would never return to his tutelage, but he considered that he had taught her at last a very valuable lesson. When she did return the next morning, Arthkamu registered no surprise, but inside he was seething. "I'll be leaving shortly," she explained quietly, "but I believe I've developed a new type of lock, and I'd be grateful if you'd give me your opinion of it." Arthkamu shrugged and asked her to present her design. "I was wondering if I might use the vampire room and install the lock. I think it would be better if I demonstrated it." Arthkamu was dubious, but the prospect of the tiresome girl leaving at last put him in an excellent and even indulgent mood. He agreed to give her access to the room. For all morning and most of the afternoon, she worked near the slumbering vampire, removing the old lock and adding her new prototype. Finally, she asked her old master to take a look. He studied the lock with an expert eye and found little to be impressed with. This is the first and only pick-proof lock, Yana explained. The only way to open it is to have the right key. Arthkamu scoffed and let Yana close the door, shutting him in the room. The door clicked, and he began to go to work. To his dismay, the lock was much more difficult than he thought it would be. He tried all his methods to force it, and found that he had to resort to his hated student's method of careful and thorough exploration. I need to leave now, called Yana from the other side of the door. I'm going to bring the city guard to the stronghold. I know that it's against the rules, but I really think that it's for the welfare of the villagers not to have a hungry vampire on the loose. It's getting dark, and even though you aren't able to unlock the door, the vampire might be less proud about using the key to escape. Remember when you said, if I put the key to the lock right in front of you, you'd still never get around to opening it? Wait, Arthkamu yelled back. I'll use the key. Where is it? You forgot to give it to me. But there was no reply. Only the sound of footfall disappearing down the corridor beyond the door. Arthkamu began to work harder on the lock, but his hands were shaking with fear. With no windows, it was impossible to tell how late it was getting to be. Were minutes that were flying by, or hours? He only knew that the vampire ancient would know. The tools could not stand very much twisting and tapping from Arthkamu's hysterical hands. The wire snapped in the keyhole, just like a student. Arthkamu screamed and pounded on the door, but he knew that no one could possibly hear him. It was while sucking in his breath to scream again, he heard the distinct creak of the crate opening behind him. The vampire agent regarded the master locksmith with insane, hungry eyes and flew at him in a frenzy. Before Arthkamu died, he saw it. On a chain that had been placed around the vampire's neck while it had been sleeping was a key. And that is the locked room. Definitely horror-esque. The locked room slaps. Glad to hear. It's not, that was a good horror one? Yeah. Has just enough. Feels like the horror is an accent, a spice, not the body of the flavor. That guy deserved it. Yeah, it's a comeuppance. Normally, I would have misgivings about the morality of locking somebody in a room and knowing that they probably would not be able to get out. But considering he literally used the threat of being sucked dry, to try to teach, to forcibly teach one of his students a lesson. Not even teach a lesson, right? Just force her hand. Is, yeah, definitely some comeuppance. Cathartic story of revenge. Yeah, very much a deserved thing. And another good part about it is that it's not gory, which is nice. I mean, there's definitely the mental image of a husk that's been just completely sucked dry, but compared to some of the gory things that we've had on the channel here and there, and definitely more palatable, I think. Anyway, I don't know. Maybe for some people, the thought of getting sucked dry by a vampire is more horror-esque than the more gory stories. Sure, for some people it's for some people in some contexts it's a fantasy. I think a few days ago I was delving into Elder Scrolls fanfic because I had never taken a look at it before. It's like, okay, that there might be something interesting that I might be able to read on stream. What I learned from that quick survey of Elder Scrolls fanfics, I think about the only thing I learned is that people really, really like Serana. Which, to be fair, understandable, same, but wow, the proportions. Good gods, the proportions. Let's see. We have a related undead story about not vampires but Draugr. Where did I put it? There's the Draugr story. She has good character lore, but I think a big part of it is because she grows on you, grows with you as the story goes. If only they could do that with most characters. Yeah. I think a lot of people's favorite companion mods are ones where there's some character development of some sort, where they're reactive to what you do, what happens narratively, and the surrounding world. In fact, some of the best companion mods, like Inigo, for instance, specifically have lines and react to other companions as well. And with modded Skyrim, you can have multiple companions, and so you can have Serana and Inigo. You could have what's her name? I carry your burdens, Miss the person you get as a guardian when you become Thane of Whitehold. Lydia, there's the name. God's me and names. Yeah, you can have Lydia and not Arth Common Gods. That was the guy there. And Inigo, right? Like that's. And some of these companion mods are even reactive to each other. So, yeah, that sort of reactivity and growth are, they make a companion feel good, not just a static prop, right? Or just a cardboard cutout of a time and place in the storyline. It's a character that is actually your companion and is, experiencing the things that you are and have seen, the things that you've done or had to go through. And there are definitely companion mods like, what's her name? Recorder. That's a mod that I wish would get a revamp, because it hasn't been touched in half a decade, at least, if not longer. Maybe most of the decade. But she's a really fun, slightly fourth wall breaky companion, but is voiced by, what was her name? She's still around today. Panda something or another. Can't find her name right now. That is a shame. But yeah, that's somebody who's still around and active and streaming. Anyway, let's get back to the story. If I go on a Skyrim tangent, I'm liable to be still on that tangent by the time we wrap up an hour. And perhaps this might be the last story of this particular stream. I'm trying to keep storytime streams to about 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours, just because of my physical condition. And once I have a heart rate monitor come in, we'll see what my physical capabilities are as well. We'll have a better monitor on things. So, yeah. And it might, reading streams might actually end up being a shorter, hour and a half, 2. Maybe we'll still be able to do 2.5 or 3. I know that 4.5 is too much. Right now we're at 3 hours, 15 minutes. So one more story will put us at about, somewhere near 3.5. Skyrim is good, it really is. And really, the Elder Scrolls as a whole, it's a wonderful, wonderful world. I know one of the things that really gives it life is the fact that basically everything in the Elder Scrolls is told through an unreliable narrator, which basically it means that even historians don't have everything right. Everybody has a bias, everybody has blind spots, everybody has physical limitations on their knowledge and their ability to gather intel. Some of it is tinged super heavily with, their loyalties. For one, there's a book that I call the author a Thalmor bootlicker, right? But also others where, it's very much reads like an inflammatory piece that's dressed up as written by somebody of one race, but, very much just inflame issues, right, for them. And like the history, this is all without considering dragon breaks as a note. Dragon breaks are their own, just absolutely bonkers thing. As a note, for anybody who wasn't here last time, we read the story, The Warp in the West, which is a collation by a Blades agent of various reports from regional Blades agents that they've got about a particular event within a set of a few days where it is commonly believed that a dragon break occurred. And it's really curious to see these various separate people in separate regions experiencing this one point in time where, well, put it simply, a dragon break is a reality splitting into multiple parallel universes and then crashing back together again with elements from all of those parallel universes. And so for some people, the continuity doesn't make sense, right? And some of these agents are, sussing that out through various sources. At first, they have no clue what's going on. They're trying to travel, and then suddenly there's a giant light, and, evidently that whole area just got absolutely scorched, but there was no massive amount of mages or an army there or anything until they wake up however long later in a medical facility being healed and hear stories that evidently that was literally just the meeting point of 3 armies? But where did the armies come from? Right, and that was just one account. That one gets... There's a line that's slightly body horror-y, but it's like multiple reports like this. It's really... I mean, these characters are in some measure of distress for the most part, but it's really, really interesting to see a dragon break through the eyes of a person on the ground that's been affected by this collapsing of multiple parallel universes, parallel realities. All of those realities were real, as a note, is how dragon breaks work. Basically everything that happened in those parallel universes is true. And this is within Elder Scrolls lore? Yeah. They're called dragon breaks. It was especially... I think the warp in the West is something that happened in relation to the Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall? If memory serves? Let me take a quick look here. Warp in the West. Yeah, so this is a book that you can find in the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. So it takes place sometime before the events of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, which itself takes place in early 3rd era, I believe? What's that 4th era? Gods, I forgot my eras again. But yeah. So this story is... that sounds extremely fascinating. Yeah, it is. Also very, very hard to pinpoint anything of real concrete reality, because it is reality itself being fairly malleable as things go. Gonna take a sip and then we'll start amongst the Draugr. So anybody who has played Skyrim will know who the Draugr are. For everyone else, the Draugr are Nord undead who are interned in usually large constructions of sorts. How do I even describe them? They're effectively a form of catacomb. I think. Anyway, this is Amongst the Draugr by Bernadette Bantian, College of Winterhold. Discoveries about the Draugr and their link to the dragon cults. It wasn't until my 7th month with the creatures that they seemed to accept me. Well, quote, accept, isn't really the proper word, but they seem to have decided that I posed no threat to them and gradually ceased their attacks. Though more than capable of fending them off, a combination of fire and turning spells are generally sufficient, I admit that I tired of having to be ever vigilant in their presence. I'll never know whether there was some sort of agreement communicated among them, for the only utterances they make seem to be in that heathen tongue that I can't even pronounce, much less transcribe. In time, I learned more of their intentions toward me from their general movements and tones, rather than specific words. Hostility in any creature is easy to read, but in these most peculiar of the living dead, with such variations in gait and speed, what amounts to a hostile charge in one may simply be casual movement in another. The eyes seem to be key to their intent, and I will confess to more than one dream haunted by the glowing pinpoints in the darkness. I have always wondered why the ancient priests of the dragon cult insisted that their followers be buried with them. It seems the height of pagan vanity to drag your conscripts to their death along with you. But as I integrated into their presence, I began to observe the reasons. Every day, a different set of Draugr would awaken, shamble their way to the sarcophagus of their priest, and postulate themselves before it. Several hours of this followed by a meticulous cleaning of the area. It would appear that the adherents of the dragon priests continue their worship of him in death, which would also explain the ferocity with which they defend his chambers. It took several weeks before I felt comfortable approaching the dragon priest's resting place myself, inch by inch, until the snarling Draugr around me seemed to tire of fending off my timid presence. I was able to set up simple scrying spells around the tomb, that I might get a sense of what magical energies resided there. When the next group of Draugr came to pay homage to the priest, I noted a sort of transferal happening. A distinct flow of life force between the adherents and the master. It was here that I finally understood the dragon cult's notion of resurrection. The second eternal life was only promised to those who ascended to the priesthood, but the lesser functionaries contributed their life force to sustaining them for eternity. I don't know what sort of eternal wellspring they draw from, but it's clear that each Draugr carries only the barest whisper of life in it, and rekindles it nightly while resting in its niche. I now believe that the grotesque forms that we see in the barrows were, in fact, buried fully as men and women and Only over the thousands of years they have passed, withered into the wretched things we know. If we had visited a barrow directly after its construction, we might not even have, let's try that again. We might not have even known any of its inhabitants were dead. These discoveries and extrapolations excite me, and my mind aches to return to the barrows. I have only paused here at the college to transcribe these notes and gather further supplies for a more extended stay. My new hope is to learn some rudimentary way of speaking to them, for imagining what they could tell us of the early mists of time is staggering. And that was Amongst the Draugr. I wonder. Bernadette Bantian. There's no other books by them. I thought I remembered a book about somebody slowly, while researching the Draugr, slowly sort of being overtaken by the magic that drives the Draugr. But no, at the very least, this is not not the author that wrote that book that I'm remembering, if I'm actually remembering and not imagining. I'm sorry, sir. That was super cool. Glad you like it. Makes me want to re-download all the Elder Scrolls games. I hear that a lot. Makes me want to rebuild my Skyrim mod list so that I can play it on stream. But that's a lot. I have already started doing that, but also it's going to take a while for me to properly get one together. So yeah. And then there's also the Oblivion remaster that's coming fairly soon, as far as we know. Because I haven't played Oblivion yet. I've only ever played Skyrim. I know quite a bit about Morrowind and Oblivion, but I never really played them. Even Skyrim, it took me, gods, 8 years after the release of Skyrim initial release to play my first playthrough. Or was it 10? Sorry, sir. The idea that the mausoleums were used purely to have loyal followers give their life force to the priests forever is interesting. Makes me wonder why. Yeah. I suppose part of it is that the dragon priests served the dragons. The dragons are functionally immortal unless another dragon or dragonborn defeats them and consumes their soul, right? And so the dragon priests, I think, would have incentive to, I mean, aside from the whole I want to live forever, power, rah, 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 that sort of thing, in the context that they were servants of the dragons, immortal creatures, they would have at least some incentive to also have really, really long lifespans, if not immortal lifespans, to continue that service as priests of the dragons. I never did finish gathering all the dragon priest masks. I haven't either. That is really difficult. Especially in one playthrough. That's fair, and dragons probably like them worshipping them. Yeah, definitely. Oh. Stretch. Oh. Oh. Definitely take a sip and a munch and stretch your shoulders. Oh, before I forget, I need to rest my eyes as well. Can I just look 10 meters away for 15-20 seconds? And also slowly cycle through different focal lengths as well. There we go. Sorry I'm talking so much. Nothing to apologize for. I will never complain about somebody that chats a bunch. I find the wooden mask in a few of the others, but I've never found the rest. Yeah, the wooden mask. So you find that makes sense because the wooden mask is in like the city portion of Labyrinthian, right? And then Mirak's mask, I guess, is fairly easy to find. I know there's one that's fairly out in the open, somewhere in the hills of Markarth, that I tend to stumble upon quite a bit. Oh, Mirak. Mirak is the big bad in the Dragonborn DLC. He's the servant of Hermaeus Mora and also a Dragonborn. Uses tentacles, has a sort of tentacly mask. In Skyrim, you get 2 worshippers, servants. Oh gods, I've never done the Dragonborn DLC. Really? Definitely a little fun. You also get to see Solstheim, which is one of the... I don't know if it's technically Morrowind, but it is affected by the ashfall from the eruption of Red Mountain and the continuing eruption of Red Mountain, and is mostly a Dummer settled area. Neither have I played it. Really, Raven? That's definitely it's interesting for people that, again, if you want to see Dunmerry architecture and more Morrowind-y areas in the Skyrim engine. Really, really cool. You haven't done Dawnguard either? Oh dear, Dawnguard is so nice. Serana does make it really cool. But also the contents are also really fun too. Skyrim brought it from Morrowind in the time of Elder Scrolls 3. Oh, Skyrim bought it, like the territory, the island of Solstheim. You love Dawnguard? Yeah, Dawnguard is a lot of fun. I think pretty much almost every run of Skyrim I've ever done, generally I tend to get the levels necessary to get Serana, and at least complete up until you can get her as a true companion. And at least complete that part of Dawnguard. And then from there, whatever. But it became a refuse after Red Mountain. Oh, refuge. Yeah, refuge. Yeah. Refuge for especially Dummer that we're trying to evacuate from the immediate area of Red Mountain. Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know the history behind the Skyrim buying the island. I like becoming vampire after defeating all the vampires. Yeah, that makes sense too. I'm definitely more siding with the Dawnguard, but then definitely becoming a vampire. There's definitely some perks, and it's, there's some mods that make that a lot more fun too. Little disappointed with the Vampire Lord stuff because of the way that it feels completely separate from the rest of your character. So at least that's what I remember from Solstheim lore. It may not be correct. It's been a while since I've read it. I would definitely be interested in seeing if we can find some sort of book that actually goes into that, because I would think that at least as something, perhaps it's in one of the, and perhaps you hear it from a character on Solstheim, but there's also a good chance that it's in one of the books, so that people can, they come to Solstheim and then they find the book and read, oh, this used to be, properly Morrowind until Skyrim bought it. I know there were... Oh, what's the shipping company that operates in Solitude? Because I know they used to have a base of operations in Solstheim as well, if memory serves. There's a book on the Udafrict, a beast from Solstheim that you've fought in both Morrowind and Oblivion? East Empire Company, that's the name. Yeah. I seem to remember East Empire Company having crates of their materials somewhere in Solstheim. That would make sense. Yeah. Specifically in the mine, where you go down, you first enter like the building above the mine, and there's a couple bickering there. The guy there is trying to reclaim, I think, his father. To discover what his father was trying to discover below the mines there, or in the mines below that building there. And you go in, and there's, I won't spoil it, but I believe there are remnants of the East Empire Company there. Yeah. Anyway. Let us find someone to raid. Who can we raid today? Oh, Fishy is streaming, but is doing BG3, not Skyrim. Maybe we'll raid Nova then. For the relaxing and fascinating stories? My pleasure. I'm glad you found it nice. not all of my streams are reading streams, but I try to at least do 1 to 2 every week. Often it allows me to discover stories I've not read before too, so it's a lot of fun for me. Let us see. We are going to raid Nova. Is that? Where is the Nova? There we go. Where is the ready button? There it is. So for anybody over in the YouTube part of the stream, if you'd like to come with us, either hop into Twitch in the next minute-ish, or you can take this link and meet us there. Oh. I'll probably give it another 30 seconds. Is that Arg, matey? Need to, Thanks for another wonderful stream, of course, Darwin. My pleasure. Thanks for being here. Isomarg, matey? Is that a play on the word isomar? Anyway. Ta-ta for now. See you next time.